You know, my son's favorite animal at the circus is an elephant. That reminds me of this puzzle that has to do with the circus. Let's take a look. Brian saw some circus vehicles. He saw 25 wheels in all. If 5 of the vehicles are cars, how many vehicles are bicycles and tricycles? Well, before we answer the question, I want you to notice that there's a keyword that says that he saw some vehicles. Now, the reason I want you to notice that is because if you take a look at the chart here, we are given cars, tricycles, bicycles, and unicycles. Well, he only saw cars, tricycles, and bicycles. It doesn't say he saw unicycles. So we actually don't need that information. So what we want to do is cross out this information so it doesn't get us distracted. All right, we're ready to start. Now, the first thing we want to find out is how many wheels there are in all the cars he saw, because that's the only information that we're given. And then we can take that number and subtract from the total number of wheels he saw in the circus. That'll give us the remaining wheels. All right, so we know he saw 5 cars, and each car has 4 wheels. So 5 times 4 gives us 20 wheels. So the cars have 20 wheels in all. Now, 25, which was the total number of wheels he saw, minus the 20 wheels of the cars gives us the 5 wheels that are left. So if there are 5 wheels left, how many tricycles and bicycles did he see? Well, tricycles have 3 wheels and bicycles have 2. So he saw 1 tricycle and 1 bicycle. See, 1 tricycle times the 3 wheels in the tricycle equals 3 wheels. And 1 bicycle times the 2 wheels in the bicycle equals 2 wheels. So that, if we were to add these 2, that gives us the remaining 5 wheels. Now, I'd like to point something very important out, or point out something very important. When we take the product of a number, when we take the product of 1 and any number, we always get that number. Okay, so 1 times 3 equals 3. Now, this has a very special name. It's called the identity property of multiplication. Well, let's move on with our riddle. We already said that that Brian saw 1 tricycle and 1 bicycle. That's it. That's the answer to our riddle. Who knew that you would find multiplication properties at the circus? Have fun with math, and I'll see you next time.
So let's do a little bit of practice with multiplying with the identity property multiplication, and we'll talk about the zero property multiplication, okay? So let's start with our word problem we have on our screen. It says, Luke sees 4 bird baths. Each bird bath has 2 birds in it. What multiplication sentence tells us how many birds there are? Before I start, I want to circle my important numbers just so I know where they are. So we know we have 4 bird baths. 4 bird baths, and each bird bath has 2 birds in it. I want to know which multiplication sentence tells me how many there are. Okay, so let's start by drawing a picture. I know there are 4 bird baths, so I can draw 4 bird baths or 4 groups. I'm going to draw 4 bird baths. Don't make fun of my bird bath. 3, 4. Okay, so there are my 4 bird baths. Luke said that each bird bath has 2 birds in it. So here is my birds. Here's one bluebird. I'm going to pretend it's a bluebird. Here's my other bluebird. Here's another bluebird. 2 in this one. 2 in this one. 2 in this one, 2 birds, and 2 birds. So let's look at your picture. What multiplication sentence tells how many birds there are in this picture? Think about how many bird baths times how many birds in each bird bath. And that's going to tell me how many birds there are. What 2 numbers am I multiplying? What 2 factors do I have? Okay, so let's start. The number of bird baths. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have 4 bird baths. Times how many birds in each bird bath? Well, your first bird bath here has 1, 2 in it. The second bird bath also has 1, 2. Right? So my next factor will be A2. Tells me 4 bird baths, 2 in each bird bath. How many are there altogether? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 8 birds altogether in my bird bath. So the multiplication sentence that represents this picture is 4 times 2 equals 8. All right, now let's just pretend that 1 bird from each bird bath is going to fly away. 1 bird from each bird bath. So let's take 1 away, 1 from this bird bath, 1 from this one, and 1 from this one. Let's look at the equations now, your picture now. What multiplication sentence represents the picture we see on our screen now? Think about your 2 factors. What numbers would you write in a multiplication sentence to represent this one? So your first factor is a 4 because again, your number of bird baths has not changed. I still have 1, 2, 3, 4 bird baths. So your first factor is going to be 4. Now, how many birds are in each bird bath? I now only have 1 bird in each bird bath. So your next factor is a 1. 4 times 1 equals how many birds altogether? 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 times 1 equals 4. This equation represents the identity property of multiplication. So the identity property, type that in for you. All right, so that identity property of multiplication states that any number times 1 is going to equal that number. So in our last equation with the bird baths, we had 4 times 1, and it equaled 4. So any number times 1 is going to equal that number. That's why we had 4 bird baths and 1 in each bird bath, and it equaled 4, okay? Now, if I had, let's pretend I had 8 birds, right? Or 8 bird baths, and I had 1 bird in each bird bath then. Any number times 1 is going to equal that number. So it's going to equal 8. So any number times 1 is going to equal that number. That's that identity property of multiplication. Okay, now let's go back to our bird bath equation real quick, and I want to show you one more thing. So let's pretend now that the other bird leaves, okay? So now 1 more bird from each bird bath is going to leave. There we go. Okay, so now what equation could I write to represent this picture? How many groups times how many in each group and how many all together? Look at this picture carefully. It's not a trick question. How many bird baths do you see? See 1, 2, 3, and 4 bird baths. So I still have 4 bird baths. That's my first factor. How many birds do you see in the first bird bath? 0. How many are in the second one? 0. So your other factor is 0. So your new equation says 4 times 0. And I want to know how many birds there are. Do you see any birds in your bird bath? No, you see 0 in it. Okay, so our equation is 4 times 0 equals 0. Now this brings me to our next property of multiplication. So we talked about the identity property of multiplication, where any number times 1 equals that number. Let's go, and I want to talk to you about the 0 property of multiplication. 0 property of multiplication. So the 0 property of multiplication states that any number times 0 is going to equal 0. In our equation, we had 4 bird baths. We had 0 birds in each bird bath. So I had 0 birds altogether. Okay? So any number times 0 is going to equal 0. Okay? If I had 8 bird baths and I had 0 birds in each bird bath, I still would have 0 birds. Every bird bath will be empty because I'm multiplying it by 0. All right? So let's do a couple of these together, and then you're going to practice some on your own. Why don't you take a minute to get out a piece of paper in case you need to draw a picture or to show your workout as we're working together. Okay, so let's do some practice. Finding the product. So if I have, for example, 3 times 0, I want to know how many it is altogether. So what is my product? I don't know yet. So think about the picture we did with the bird baths. I have 3 bird baths, and I'm just going to draw circles for this one. 1, 2, 3. Okay, there's my 3. I have 0 birds in each bird bath. Okay, so I have 0 in the first one, I have 0 in the second one, a 0 in the third one. How many birds do I have altogether? 0, right. It's not a trick question. I have 0 altogether. Remember, any number times 0 is going to equal 0. That's that 0 property, okay? And it doesn't matter what order those numbers are in. It can be 3 times 0 would equal 0. If I had 0 times 3, I still have a number multiplied by 0, so it would equal 0. When any number is multiplied by 0, your answer is going to be 0. It doesn't matter if it's 674 times 0. If it's multiplied times 0, your answer is going to be 0. Okay? Do me a favor and write these 3 problems down on your paper. 4 times 0. 0 times 9. And 6 times 0. Write those down on your paper. Now solve. Go through each one and think about it. Think about that 0 property. So 4 times 0 is going to equal what? 0, absolutely. Let's go to the next one. 0 times 9. 0 times 9 equals 0. And the last one. 6 times 0 equals 0. Any number times 0 is going to equal 0. Okay. Ready for 3 more. Let's talk about the identity property of multiplication. The identity property of multiplication states that any number times 1 is going to equal that number. So if I have the equation, say 6 times 1, okay? Think of it as terms of our bird baths. So if I have 6 bird baths, I'm going to draw my 6 bird baths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I have one bird in each bird bath. One bird in the first one bird in the second one bird in the third one bird in the fourth one bird in the fifth one bird in the sixth one. Each bird bath has one bird in it. How many birds do I have all together? Simple. Let's count the birds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 times 1 equals 6. Any number times 1 is going to equal that number. Same thing if I reverse the order of my factors. I can also say 1 times 6 is going to equal 6 because the 6 is multiplied by 1. When that 6 is multiplied by 1, I'm still going to get that number. All right, let's practice. Write these problems down on your paper. 15 times 1 equals 1 times 2 equals, and 8 times 1 equals. Write those down. Now let's solve. Solve for 15 times 1, 1 times 2, and 8 times 1. So let's go to 15 times 1. 15 is a big number, right? Do I want to draw 15 bird baths? No. But I know that 15 times 1 is going to equal 15 because that identity property tells me that any number times 1 equals that number. Look at the next one. 1 times 2. 1 times 2 equals 2 because 2 is my number. I multiply it by 1 and I got a 2. Look at the last one. 8 times 1. 8 is my number. I'm multiplying it by 1. 8 times 1 equals 8 because 8 is my number. Now, little quiz before I turn you loose on your own. Ready? I'm going to give you 4 problems I want you to write down and I want you to solve. Let's start with 5 times 1, 0 times 9. They're doing great. Write these problems down, please. 1 times 3. Put my fourth one over here on the side. Ready? And 6 times 1. Write those 4 problems down on your paper and solve. If you still need a few more minutes to finish solving, go ahead and pause this video and unpause it when you're done. Otherwise, we're going to check our answers. Please do not check your answers until you've finished your work. Look at the first one, 5 times 1. 5 times 1 equals 5. Good job counting that and multiplying it. And remembering that any number times 1 is going to equal that number. Good job. Let's go to our next one. 0 times 9. The product of 0 and 9 is 0, because any number times 0 equals 0. And 1 times 3 equals 3. Great work. And finally, 6 times 1 equals 6. Great job. All right, friends. So last thing I want to make sure you take from this is, let's review quickly the 0 property of multiplication. Any number times 0 equals 0. So if you see 2 factors and one of them is 0, it's always going to equal 0. It doesn't matter how big or how small or funny looking that number looks like. If it's multiplied by 0, it's going to equal 0, okay? Our next property we talked about today is the identity property of multiplication. Any number times 1 is always going to equal that number, all right? Any number times 1 is going to equal that number. All right, so I think you guys are ready. Let's go ahead and let's do some practice. Remember, your teachers are here to help you. If you need help or if you get stuck, please ask us for help. Great job staying focused today, guys. Let's hit our work.